Examples to distinguish/primary and secondary sources. The following are a few examples to illustrate the difference between the primary and secondary sources for the collection of data for a research. The secretary's minutes of a meeting are primary, but the newspaper editor's comments on the meeting, even though based on the minutes of the meeting, is secondary, since both the secretary and the editor have come between the event and the person who reads the newspaper comments. If the editor is present in person at the meeting of the school board, then his comments are primary. 2. The official registration cards for students in a school are a primary source for analyzing age, sex, and geographical distribution, but a newspaper report based on this analysis is a secondary source. 3. The textbooks in the history of education are secondary sources as most chapters and sections of the book are reproduced from other sources. The information in books provided by another author as a result of the author's own observation will serve as the primary source. Primary sources of data. A. Documents are reports kept and written by actual participants in or witnesses of an event. Those sources are produced for the purpose of transmitting information to be used in the future. Documents classified as primary sources are constitutions, chapters, laws, court decisions, official minutes or records, autobiographies, letters, diaries, contracts, deeds, wills, permits, licenses, affidavits, dispositions, declarations, proclamations, certificates, lists, handbills, bills, receipts, newspaper and magazine accounts, advertisements, maps, diagrams, books, pamphlets, catalogs, films, pictures, paintings, inscriptions, recordings, transcriptions, and research. Reports. B. Remains or relics are associated with a person, group, or period. Tools, weapons, food utensils, clothing, buildings, furniture, pictures, paintings, coins, and arts objects are examples of those relics and remains that were not deliberately intended for use in transmitting information or as record. However, these sources may provide clear evidence about the past. The contents of an ancient burial place, for instance, may reveal a great deal of information about the way of life of a people, their food, clothing, tools, weapons, art, religious beliefs, means of livelihood, and customs. C. Oral testimony is the spoken account of a witness of or participant in an event. This evidence is obtained in a persona interview or may be related or transcribed as the witness relates his experiences. Primary sources of educational data for historical research included in this category are records and reports of legislative bodies and departments of education/public instruction, headmasters, principals, vice-chancellors, deans, department heads, educational committees, minutes of school enraging committees, boards of trustees, surveys, charters, deeds, schools/colleges, university newspapers, annual bulletins, catalogs, courses of study, curriculum guides, athletic game records, certificates, textbooks, examinations, report cards, pictures, drawings, maps, letters, diaries, autobiographies, teachers and pupil personal file, sample of student work and recordings. Some of the main material reports on education in Pakistan are as under: 1. Report of the Commission on National Education, 1959. 2. Curriculum Committee Report, 1960. 3. Report of the Commission of Students' Problems and Welfare. 4. Proposals for the New Education Policy, 1969 by Nur Khan. 5. Education Policy, 1972-86. National Education Policy, 1978. 7. Curriculum Outlines for Classes I to X, P.T.C, C.T, B, ed., in various subjects by different curriculum committees under the supervision of Central Bureau of Curriculum and Textbooks, Federal Ministry of Education, Islamabad, 1974-78 and 1983-84 and thereafter 8. 5-year plans, IST 1955-60. 2nd 1960 to 65, 3rd 1965 to 74th 1970 to 75, 5th 1978 to 83, 6th 1983 to 88, 7th 1988 to 93, and Perspective Plan 1988 to 2003. Oral testimony. Included here are interviews with administrators, teachers, other school employees, students and relative, school patrons, bodies of the private autonomous institutions in education. The TV and radio interviews with the experts ID Education also serve as primary source for the collection of data. Relics. Included in this category are buildings, furniture, teaching materials, equipment, memorial, decorative pictures, textbooks, examinations, and samples of students' work. The examples for the buildings in this respect may be the houses of Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad al-Jinnah and Allama Iqbal for studying the role of those preeminent figures in the history of Pakistan. Secondary sources of data. Secondary sources are the reports of a person who relates the occurrence of eyewitness of or participant in an event. Secondary sources of data are usually of limited worth for research purpose because of the errors that may result when information is passed on from person to person. Sometimes it is of more value when the information is collected from so many primary sources after witnessing the occurrence from different aspects and the information becomes complete and meaningful. History textbooks and encyclopedia are the examples of such secondary sources. Collection of the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, may be presented as good examples of such sources which are secondary in nature and more valuable as compared to the primary sources of information in this respect. Sometimes it is essential for the historian to depend upon the secondary sources. The historical events/occurrences cannot be repeated like the experiments in a laboratory. The Battle of Panipat or the battles of 1965 and 1971 between Pakistan and India cannot be repeated for the historian. The historian has to depend upon the information provided by the people relating the occurrence, the basis of their eyewitnesses. Some types of material may be secondary sources for some purposes and primary sources for another. For example, a high school textbook in Pakistan studies is ordinarily a secondary source. But if one were making a study of the change in the style of writing textbooks with the change of various ruling regime in Pakistan, the textbooks will serve as a primary source of information.